I have some concerns. So I've had some time to think, as a decent amount of time has now passed since news has come out, or rumours have come out regarding the potential of a Halo CE remake, and I've been kind of reflecting on Halo in general in recent months, years, and all the way back to kind of its golden era. And I've kind of been weighing things up in my head, and I've been processing, and I've come to some conclusions, and they are not comfortable ones. But I feel like I need to voice them, just if nothing else, just to add my voice to the conversation. And then there may be follow-up videos to this as well. So today we're going to have a few uncomfortable conversations, but I hope that at the end of it we have a kind of a clearer picture on the lay of the land for Halo, what's going on with Halo, what has happened with Halo, and perhaps even finish up with a glimmer of hope. Either way, this is not going to be comfortable, but it needs to be said. So let's roll that intro. Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and I wanted to discuss Halo in general today. And first things first, I want to discuss the content drought, because it is abundantly clear that there is yet again a huge content drought in the Halo universe. Now, it's, for me as a content creator, obviously a content drought isn't good. Not having new lore come out is a problem. But we also have to bear in mind that Halo is an expansive universe and has a huge amount of information to call from. So as a content creator, although the content drought is difficult, there's no new things to bring to the fore, there is still a plentiful supply of old things to bring forward. Now there's a few problems there. It's not like that. It's not like there's a lack of lore to cover in the Halo universe. It's huge. There's tons of lore. For me, as a content creator, it's about bringing content to my audience that hasn't been done or rehashed numerous times by my other learned friends and fellow content creators. It's bringing something different and unique, bringing my own perspective on things that really brings me joy in what I do. That is why I think my most detailed series does so well, or was doing so well, because it was exploring existing lore, things we're all familiar with, but adding a level of detail that is far above and beyond what anyone else was doing. But of course the big issue therein is that if we're going over old lore all the time and never really bringing anything new to the table, eventually people are going to get bored. People are going to get tired of the same themes. Yeah, I might bring a video forward that looks at something from the old lore in a slightly different perspective, but is it different enough to actually attract people to hit that button, to click the video, to watch it for a bit? It's a toss-up, and I think that's partially what we're seeing with many of the creators within the Halo sphere going on at the moment. We're creating videos based in the franchise that we all love, but it's still rehashing the same old lore that we've covered numerous times from numerous different angles. Is it different enough to draw attention? The thing that does draw attention is new lore, new things, and that's where my concerns lie. Halo Infinite, for example, was meant to be the next 10 years of the Halo franchise. It released a year later than it was originally planned to, and here we are less than 3 years since its launch date, and it's all but been abandoned. Of course, there's still a couple of teams working on Infinite and doing general content updates and store refreshes, but most of the developing teams of 343 Industries have left Halo Infinite high and dry and moved over onto the next project. Now, don't get me wrong, getting a new Halo game every 3 to 5 years, I'm all for that. That's exactly how things were back in the day. Halo CE launched in 2001, Halo 2 launched in 2004, 3-year gap. Halo 3 launched in 2007, 2 to 3 year gap. It's not uncommon to have a sort of 2 to 5 year development difference between the games. It means we get more games more often, new lore more often, new content more often. Now, of course, Halo Infinite was somewhat viewed as a soft reboot for the franchise and took heavy inspiration from Halo CE. But in so doing, what we effectively got then was a campaign that somewhat just extrapolated one specific level from Halo CE into a full-length campaign. And of course, with all the planned campaign DLC now completely cancelled and Halo Infinite evidently now not being 10 years worth of Halo, we're back to this awkward limbo middle ground where we don't know what's really going to happen next. Again, in regards to the Halo Infinite DC, if it was seen through and Halo Infinite became 10 years worth of the Halo franchise, we could have seen some new campaigns that added new lore, that added new angles and new things to explore and to talk about and to theorize about and to theory craft. But it didn't. That's exactly what I cover in my, I think it was a 4-part series where I looked at Halo Infinite DLC and kind of conjectured what could have been but ultimately wasn't. My big concern is that Halo Infinite was taking place on Zeta Halo, a ring that has more deep lore and more history than all of the other rings combined. And yet, what we really got from that was a reskinned Covenant and a new species that we know nothing about, being chased promptly by basically every aspect of Halo Infinite as a product, being abandoned for the next thing. I mean, by reskinned Covenant, that's basically what the Banished are. The Banished are the Covenant, but not in purple, in red and steel colours. And as for the Endless, we really just know their names, the fact that they survived the effects of the Halo, and that the Foreigners imprisoned them. That is, broadly speaking, all we know about the Endless. Yet the rich history of Zeta Halo could have spun the story off in any direction, from the Flood to ancient humanity to the Forerunners, new species, offensive bias, mendicant bias, Flood experimentation, the Created and their wrestle for power, Cortana's ultimate demise. With the Banished being brought into Halo Infinite, that could have brought in the Spirit of Fire from Halo Wars 2. It really could have gone in any direction, and yet what we got was one single level of Halo CE expanded out into an entire campaign with a reskinned Covenant and a new species we know 3 small pieces of information about. That's really concerning for an entire new game entry into the franchise. And of course, that translated quite clearly to mean that, broadly speaking, after about 6 months following the release of Halo Infinite, all the new lore, all the new narrative, all the new storyline had been explored and had dried up. 6 months following the release of a brand new game, and the conversation was over. Now, of course, that wasn't the only narrative aspect of Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite had a multiplayer narrative as well, which was actually starting to look like it was going to go in an interesting direction. And then they announced they were no longer doing the multiplayer narrative. And moreover on that, they struggled as a studio to achieve seasonality for content updates. We were expecting seasons every 3 months from the launch of Halo Infinite. The first couple of seasons lasted nearly a year apiece until they finally achieved seasonality. And when they finally did achieve seasonality and we started getting a season every 3 months, they announced that they were abandoning that too, because the team were moving over to develop the next project, leaving us just with content updates and story refreshes. Now, I don't really like making negative content about Halo, because although negative content seems to pull in the views, it does, it's abundantly clear if you look at the videos here on YouTube, negative content by the overwhelming majority has better views than positive content. It's as simple as that. But the problem there is that I don't want to create content where I'm hating on the franchise that I'm supposedly love, because if I do that, I start hating what I do and thus hating the franchise. I don't want to hate Halo, I want to love Halo, and I do love Halo. So I don't like making content that's negative, but it's a concern that is prominent enough in my mind at the moment that I feel that it needs to be spoken about. And bear with me, I'm going to try to give this a little bit of a positive uptake towards the end. But in either case, we've had all of these immense issues with Halo Infinite, and ultimately we're less than 3 years down the line of what was supposed to be a 10-year game, and it's practically been abandoned. There's really no new content, and all the new lore is dried up, leaving content creators and fans alike wanting for more, and it just isn't coming. And now we finally have these rumours that the next project is supposed to be, unconfirmed rumours, it's supposed to be a Halo CE remake, but that it will also simultaneously be introduced to PlayStation players for the first time. Now, I think I've made this abundantly clear in a previous video. I'm all for that. Opening Halo up to a larger audience base, I am absolutely for that. That brings new people into the franchise, new interest. It pushes the franchise back up to somewhere, hopefully approximating where it was back in its heyday. I don't think it's ever really going to quite achieve the golden era it once had. I think that day is gone. But it's at least going to make it slightly more prominent once more. But ultimately, bringing new people into the franchise only works to all of our advantage, because it will show to Microsoft, to 343 Industries, that there is interest in Halo as a franchise, and that perhaps it's worth investing a little bit more, maybe lending the franchise out to other developers, so that more Halo projects can be developed simultaneously, ultimately leading to more Halo products for us to consume, which will ultimately bring more people into the franchise. It's a positive feedback loop. That I'm all for opening Halo up to a larger audience. However, judging by the way in which Halo Infinite has been delivered to us, and unfortunately Halo Infinite isn't unique in this regard, particularly since 343 has had tenure over the Halo franchise, I am concerned about the Halo CE remake. Because the Halo CE remake, to be successful, will have to do something that 343 Industries has been proven time and time again to struggle with tremendously since basically the studio's inception. The Halo CE remake needs to honour the original game to start with. It needs to give the long-term fans of the Halo franchise what we've come to expect from a Halo title. It needs to bring the product as it was originally intended to an entirely new audience from the PlayStation platform, while also offering some new narratives, some new storylines, and some new journeys that keep the interest of the original Halo fans without being overly ambitious and moving too far away from what is quintessentially Halo. If we just get a Halo CE anniversary, that's just not going to cut it. But it does need to honour the original game without changing from the storyline's original intentions, while still also offering something new, adding extraneous detail from the deep lore of the Halo universe, but also still being palatable for a new audience being introduced to the franchise for the first time. It is an immensely fine and delicate balancing act that 343 has proved they struggle with tremendously. Case in point, Halo CE made some questionable choices in regards to its art style and the ambience that most definitely detracted from the overall feel of the game, but it did do some things quite well. The terminals that expanded on the narrative of the universe were very good, and it did some of the aesthetics quite nicely as well. For example, the Pillar of Autumn and the art style shifts in the Pillar of Autumn's stylization that honoured the original lore on how the Pillar of Autumn was constructed. Spartan Assault and Spartan Strike were mobile games that were far too niche to have any long-term shelf life and were a little clunky to use, but it offered Halo from a different perspective and a different kind of experience of the Halo universe. MCC launched in almost an entirely broken condition and took a very long time, I believe over a year, to get to a playable condition, even to the point that Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach were retroactively added into MCC as something of an apology about the way in which the game first shipped. But they did the remaster of Halo 2 extraordinarily well and honoured the original stylization of the original game. Halo 4 made some narrative choices that shifted rather abruptly away from the initially implied lore of the Halo universe, whilst also implementing some art style changes which some people really just didn't gravitate towards. And it delivered a campaign which was very, go here, press this button, go there, press that button. But it was graphically very beautiful, and Chief and Cortana's story, particularly as a centre point of Halo 4, had matured and was wrestling with some themes that I celebrate even to this day. The problem is, 343 Industries' next entry was Halo 5 Guardians, which rendered most of the narrative decisions they made in Halo 4 practically moot, rendering Cortana's sacrifice and her entire story arc and her character development through Halo 4 entirely useless. They brought her back as an evil empress while also delivering a campaign which was, to the overwhelming majority, focused on a new group of Spartan 4s, two of which are characters we knew about beforehand, with Locke being foreshadowed and explored slightly in Halo Forward Unto Dawn, and with Buck being a returning character and fan favourite from Halo 3, but the other two were complete unknowns, no foreshadowing, no backstory, and I'm afraid their character development during Halo 5 was negligible. They had the depth of a spoon. And yet all the while that we were dealing with that, we also had only 3 levels dedicated to a team of Spartans that have been absolutely and utterly entrenched in the core of Halo lore since 2002. Blue Team are one of the most legendary team of Spartans in the Halo universe, and we got 3 levels for them out of a wider campaign, and during the majority of the campaign, those 3 members of Blue Team are AI controlled teammates who really only act to draw fire so that you can go around and do the objectives and do what you need to do. It doesn't explore them individually, it doesn't explore narratively who they are, or what they're good at, their strengths, their weaknesses, their backstories. They are simply there as AI assistants and bullet sponges. Halo Wars 2 continued an earlier story and was overall very good, and introduced a new faction, the Banished, with their leader Aatrox, which were fascinating and interesting characters. But as it was an RTS game, it wasn't really kind of considered a mainline Halo game. I've already covered Infinite and its shortcomings, and in spite of this, I still hugely enjoyed the campaign, and I still occasionally play the multiplayer. But the point I'm getting at is this: 343 have always struggled finding and maintaining that very delicate balance between honouring the original franchise and bringing something new to the table, which is why I'm so concerned about the Halo CE remake. If we just get a Halo CE anniversary, then yeah, the long-term fans will be okay with that, but they'll lose interest immensely fast. If it's overly ambitious and goes a completely different direction, it will upset the long-term fans because it won't be honouring the original material. And if it's a new experience aimed specifically at new Halo fans and bringing new people into the franchise, it will upset the long-term fans because that's a mistake that 343 have made before. So it needs to strike that perfect, delicate balance. But that's exactly where history has proven that 343 struggles the most. Now, I know that 343 is under new management and has been for quite a while, and credit where credit is due, since that has happened, things have been, on the whole, much better. But we have to bear in mind that this management only came into effect after the launch of Halo Infinite, which means we have no idea how the studio in its current format will be able to cope with the launch of a new product. The studio in this new format is untested in launching a new title. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I'm still concerned as to whether or not that balance can be struck. And of course, I'm not completely oblivious to what goes on social media in regards to 343 Industries and Halo as a franchise and the developers behind it. I'm not oblivious to things that are going on there. So when you add to this the apparent one-sided animosity between 343 Industries and Bungie devs, and really my big worry is for content. Not just myself, but other content creators have said that really lore has dried up in the March following the release of Halo Infinite. And my big concern is that if we do get a Halo CE remake and it's not ambitious enough, we're ultimately just going to get a rehash of Halo CE, which will mean it will add nothing to the lore and for us to discuss and to theorize and to theorycraft with. But if it's too ambitious, it risks alienating the existing fan base once more. And even if the Halo CE remake is made specifically for the new fans that will find the franchise from the PlayStation platform, they may play that Halo CE remake and then think to themselves, well, that was good, I want to explore Halo more broadly and look at some of the other games. They could then retroactively go back to the MCC. Maybe if the MCC is ported to the PlayStation, that may be on the cards, we don't know, but if they do, then the new game, the new Halo CE remake, will be at odds with the established storyline from the previous games, being confusing and convoluted for these new fans, which would ultimately lead to them losing interest and not committing to the franchise. It's a balancing act that worries me tremendously, and I'm still very excited about the future of Halo. Mainly my concerns rest on the long-term health of the Halo franchise, and more broadly speaking, the storyline. If I can make a suggestion to 343 Industries, the best thing, truly the best thing you could do right now is, if there is any animosity, drop any animosity towards the original Halo creators or Bungie devs and seek their opinions and guidance if you're uncertain on what the original intentions for Halo CE were. Again, if a Halo CE remake is where we're going with the next Halo game, if these rumours are true, it stands to reason you need to understand fully what the original intentions for the game were before levels were cut, before content was cut, before storylines were adjusted. And the people that know that the best were the people that were there at the time. Listen to the fans you already have first before overly committing to bringing in new fans. A new audience will come if you make a brilliant game, but if you make a game specifically for new fans, you risk losing the old ones and then ultimately repeating the problem for the following games, once again chasing the new fans to the risk of losing the older ones. As much as it pains me to say this during a content drought, take your time. Craft an engaging and heavily interconnected narrative that deals with slightly more gritty and mature themes. Weave deep mysteries that hint to Halo's deep lore and dark past. Use external media as reference points, just as the biblical texts, the Hollow Men, Dante's Inferno have been so heavily referenced in prior games. Honour the existing lore and deliver something new that takes direct inspiration from Halo's expansive history, and simply takes it to the next logical step. You have in your laps one of the greatest game franchises that has ever existed. Treat it as such, honour its roots, and pave the way to a future that we can all be proud of. And until next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider hitting the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Be sure to like the video if you did, and pop a comment below on what you'd like me to cover next. I just want to take a moment to thank my patrons, Spartan10148, the Metarch of my facility, Falcon, Sylphia, Mikhail, Ashley, Jordan and Esoteric Sight, my dutiful monitors, Darian, Legions Lost, Labrat, Spartan0137, Jacob Kemp, Sean, Element Zero, J3, Mr. Keys, Gunslinger, Evermore, Personal Devil, Aldiaz, Toxic, Scion Esports, Gem Saber and Relentless, my diligent sub-monitors, my fleet of Strato Sentinels, my loyal enforcers, and all other patrons who continue to support the channel. If you want your name on the end of the video and some perks earned along the way, head over to Patreon and consider supporting the channel yourself. Big shout out to my Tier 0 Transcendent YouTube members, Spartan137, Jacob Kemp, Talia, Fenrir, Bornstella, Jimbo and Balaz, and all the other YouTube members keeping my installation running on that glorious vacuum energy, with a special mention to the Accursed Hunter. Shout out to John due to the mathematical formula used to determine the area within a pentadodecahedron. Oh, and Lena because that sandwich. And remember, there are tons of ways to support the channel and keep my installation pumping out content at a breakneck speed. Much love to you all, take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.